Check, check. What's poppin', family? So, I just seen the pgLang visual mission statement, and I had some few thoughts, or it sparked a chain of thinking, and I just wanted to share that with y'all. So, what you seeing right now is some of my notes that I took today, and this is basically about the trinity archetype, and I feel like this is an important precursor to know before we get into things, because without understanding this trinity archetype, you won't really understand what is being displayed in this beautiful piece of visual content. So, on the leftmost top side, you've got the circle, which represents mother. Now, this mother archetype can also be seen as the Holy Spirit. Now, to the middle or to the right of mother is father. And father represents the wisdom. And to the right of that, in the rightmost circle in the top right corner, you have the sun, which represents love. As you go down these different circles, you realize that all these different terms and labels are all interchangeable. Mother can also be seen as the heart or the imagination, whereas father can be seen as the head or logic. Son can be seen as the hand or the action. So now realizing that without imagination, you can't have ideas. You won't have creativity. Now, without logic, you won't be able to convert your imagination to practical matters. And without the actual action, the manifestation in the form of a thought or a word, which is when you speak a word, you are invoking the air element. Are you not creating different currents of air when you speak and say different words? Do different words not force different amounts of air out of your vessel? Therefore, you're dealing with the air element once you get to words. But prior to that, you have to understand that thoughts are energy as well. And so when you understand that you at the center of the universe are the sun, you are the reflection of your mother and father. Now, to have everything work in concurrence with each other is to be enlightened, and is to be in a state of flow. When you are working with what your heart wants, with what your head is capable of analyzing, and with what your hand is capable of producing. When you are in alignment of all these three elements, you have created the crown. You have created the Trinity, the Holy Trinity. So what I did on the bottom half of this sheet is I marked off basically the beginning of the time. And what I used as a frame of reference is from the Kabbalah. It's the tree of life. And you'll see the original source was simply I. It was formless. It's the Kether realm, which is associated with Pluto or the zodiac sign Scorpio, which can be seen as death and rebirth, the ruler of death and rebirth. So if this is the highest form of realization, simply I, you would recognize that the division or the split comes in with I am. Because this is the Chokmah realm, which is ruled by Neptune and corresponds to the zodiac sign of Pisces. which has to do with imagination and spirituality. So think about this for a second. If we started off with death, right, nothing, and then the reciprocal of that would be the birth, so the I. So if there was nothing and then I, and then became the introduction of, or the form, because once you begin to imagine, I am a father, I am a worker, I am this, that, and the other, you begin to put a form around something that is formless, the I that is formless, the you that has no form, you being the soul or the spiritual being, the energy animating the vessels. Now, the third is I am who I am. That is the level of realization of Bina, which corresponds to Saturn, which is ruled by Capricorn. And this has to do with limitations and restriction. So now if you imagine, imagination is about expanding, because you're thinking, well, what if this? And what if I could do this? And what if I could do this? And spirituality is about being in tune with the things that feel good to your soul, what resonate with you on a soul level. That's the true definition of spirituality. That's why this varies so much from religion, because religion is more about creating a foundation of beliefs that are meant to be internalized. But a lot of people take these beliefs and doctrines literal, and they externalize them, and they worship the forms that they are supposed to be embodying, the archetypes that they are supposed to be embodying. For instance, in regards to Jesus Christ came here with a divine purpose to be the sacrifice, to create the bridge between the God mind and the heart and the hand, to create the sanctimonious temple of which one can embody that archetype, that Jesus Christ archetype, and see past labels, religions, views, and just see a raw soul with unharnessed potential, because it is so detached from its original purpose. Moving on to chest, she said, however you want to say it. It's ruled by Jupiter, which is associated with Sagittarius. This has to do with exploration, luck, good fortune. So once you have a method of expanding and contracting, it's then time to move that circle to different points and spaces or positions in space and time. So that's what this is all about, that level of realization. Now, when you get to Jerubra, this is ruled by Mars, which corresponds to the zodiac sign of Aries, which has to do with anything that's hot, flaming, sharp. It has to do with fighting for what we deserve, for what we believe to be right. So this is essential when exploring, because if you are exploring, you need to have a means to overcome adversity. That's what this level of realization offers you. Now, Taparith would be seen as the sun. Some may recognize the saying, my cup tippeth over. I believe that this is a direct pulling or a direct derivative from Taparith, the source, the sun, which corresponds to the sign of Leo, which has to do with confidence. And ultimately, the sun is a reflection of the Father. Now, moving on to Netzach, which is ruled by Venus, which corresponds to Taurus and Libra. This is all about home and the ability to find beauty in all people, places, and things. So having this level of realization, you're able to see past labels, rules, conditions, beliefs, and just see souls as they are. When you step into Had, this is ruled by Mercury, which corresponds to Gemini and Virgo. And this has to do with the way of thinking and how we communicate. This has to do all about communication and how communication is put across, because of course, there has to be a universal language that can be understood. Now, going into power dynamics a little bit, when one can break up anything into pieces, it becomes more manageable. This applies for goals. This applies for anything you want to accomplish in life. Now, the same can be said or seen for people. The more you're able to divide them, the easier it is to control and manipulate through various means, especially when you understand and have a overstanding of the planets and how they interact with us as a greater system, as a reflection of the macro-micro relationship in the universe. So with 9, or the Luna, this is ruled by Cancer, which has to do with the subconscious world, the emotions, the thoughts, mother, home. This also has to do with the feminine aspect. And so with the moon, this is all about our natural satellite in essence. The moon is the Earth's natural satellite. What do satellites do? Well, let's think about a few uses for satellites that we currently use. Global positioning system. Being able to figure out where you are at a specific space, point in time, by means of calculating your position based on a reflection. A signal is sent to a satellite. The satellite sends the signal back, and based on the return angle, or the angle of return, is what's determined on your location, amongst a few other things. But at a very basic premise, that's how this works. Same thing with our emotions, our thoughts. Our thoughts are energy. You have to see them as energy. Positive, neutral, negative. Those are the 3 types of labels. If you must have labels, those are the 3 that I would apply if I were you, because everything else doesn't make sense. It only makes sense to think of things in terms of positive, neutral, and negative energy. Now, if you are in a transition period, if you're going through an enlightenment period, an awakening, a spiritual awakening, you're probably in the neutral realm, because it's like riding a bike for the first time when you're figuring out manifestation and law of attraction. You may fall off the bike, but it's your first time riding. So you're going back and forth trying to figure out the new ways and embrace the new methods of thinking positive, feeling in abundance, letting go of the poverty mindset. And by doing so, you attract things, places, opportunities that confirm that. But when you are in the neutral, you get some good, some bad. And when you are in that negative space, you get things, places, and people that reaffirm you are not worthy, you are poor, you will be locked away, you will be cursed for generations. All these things that reinforce this negative stereotype, because you are not understanding that your thoughts are like a snake, and you must catch it, because it is so quick to strike. Judgment is so quick to strike. As soon as you apply judgment to something, you create a death, because you no longer allow the childlike energy or essence of your being to explore what this truly is. You are not observing at that point. You are applying a label. You are putting a form on it. And by doing so, you are actually stripping away of the joy in experiencing everything as if it were though for the first time you've ever experienced it. To finish off with Malkuth, this is the earth realm. So this is all about physical manifestations and experience. On the bottom there, it may be a little bit hard to see, but you can see the chart and how this corresponds, basically how everything feeds into each other. And this chart even has some of the tarot elements, and you can see where the different cards fall and the different power and significance of each. Each of these different suites and arcanas actually corresponds to different elements, whether it be earth, fire, air, spirit, or water. One of the 5 elements. Everything all corresponds. So when you understand or overstand the elements on a fundamental level, you can begin to put everything back together, including people and emotions. But you have to start on one side of the spectrum, the macro scale or the micro scale. Do you want to start with the entire universe, studying the planets and astrology or all these things? Or do you just want to go within and study your planets, your stars, your chakras? Everything is about energy, shock, being shocked, shocking of the soul. All of this is about energy. Understand you are a chemical plant that generates energy. Your chi, your inner chi, is being harnessed, whether you realize it or not. Other skilled magicians are manipulating your inner chi because you are unaware that you too have the ability to be a witch or a wizard. This is like as real as it gets. There's a spiritual warfare going on, and there is a change of guard that is occurring. And there has been this group of divinely protected and divinely guided spiritual beings that are being asked to surrender their desire for material possessions and for material gain in order to reconnect the community, in order to be part of the new guard that is ushering in change on a cosmic level. This is about restoring the natural order of all things within this universe. No longer will there be this artificial competition with that which is natural, that which has been instilled upon us by our ancestors and those who have come before us, known and unknown. So, understanding that the moon represents secrets, intuition, feminine energy. If black doesn't reflect any light, and light is needed for the eyes to see, when are we actually perceiving the darkness? If in your head there is no light, when you look outward, the reflection of the image comes inward. Light is sent into the darkness through your eyes, through the optic nerves, down to the brain or the intelligence, which is doing computational and analytical analysis. What am I looking at? How big? What color? What's the distance? Is this a threat? All in the dark. So one can assume that intelligence lies within the dark. That God or the universal source is darkness. So if your soul came here alone, wouldn't the purpose of life to be to connect with other threads of the same cosmic tapestry? If selfishness was part of being a God, why would our existence overlap rather than being in an isolated state or dimension where we had complete control over subservience? Could it be that this existence is merely a God boot camp in understanding that until you get it right, you will go through cycles, endless karmic cycles, experiencing different angles of light? Because truly, everything is about a different perspective. The angles in which, or the perspectives in which are accumulated over a lifetime can build a personality. And that personality, that personality, can be seen as someone who has a different view other than yours. But it simply does not make either right nor wrong, because ultimately we all are nothing. But we are also simultaneously all things. So what came before thought? How did God know to have the thought of adding light to create separation? If love is truly formless, would that mean that our versions are a container based on what we hold to be true and meaningful, but ultimately not true love, since by definition, to form or to place a form on it, on something that is formless, would not be true. It wouldn't be authentic. It would be a derivative of it. So could it be that experiencing different types of love, ultimately all coming from the same source, is the goal? Now, things start to get tricky because, of course, we're not going to live in a world that's good. There's people that have this higher level of overstanding and understanding, and use this information to manipulate the masses in the form of fear. Because fear is the opposite of love, and it's just as powerful, but it's chaotic. Whereas love is about harmony, it's harmonious. It's about will versus force. Willpower versus enslavement. So jumping into the video. Now, with this, so hopping into the first image, okay? The video opens up and you see baby Keem sitting there, sitting down, staring at the sun. Now, sun gazing is an ancient tradition that dates back many different cultures. And it was understood that messages or light codes could be received from the universe regarding your destiny as an individualized soul. So you see him sitting almost lost in thought in this green pasture, grounded, connected to Mother Earth. And you see this feminine aspect come up. And you see the interaction that takes place within the two. And there comes an understanding of different talents creating a different appreciation of one another. And through understanding, we can create trust. And once there's a level of trust, we can have faith in the subconscious, aka the universal intelligence, which is about the community, the everything. It's about the reunification through ancient methods, or the activation of the crone archetype, which could be seen as the grandmother. Now understand that at this point in time, the mother and the daughter archetypes are so damaged because the divine masculine has been taking forcefully. Take. And so the divine feminine has gotten to a point to where she feels used in a sense. Used, and feels as though she's good for nothing to be used. And so there's this disharmonious relationship between the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And because the pendulum is now swinging back to correct, or because, rather should I say, grandmother, the ancient ones are now stepping in with the ancient wisdom, they are using young vessels to tell or to remind the people of these ancient methods that created the harmony. The ancient ones are looking at this chess game that we have created and laughing and basically saying, all right, it's time to clear the table. We're not playing this game anymore. We're restoring the natural order to things, and in doing so, we are reuniting the divine feminine with the divine masculine. That means that there will be a healthy balance and a give-take relationship that is based on trust and mutual understanding of one another. So jumping into the next segment of where he mentions to turn her cell phone off. Now, cell phones can be seen as, for the majority of them, I know Apple has done something to combat this, and a few different companies have done things to combat this. But for the most part, if you don't have night shift on, to where your phone is basically shifting to a warmer hue or a less of a blue tone, because blue light has been known to disrupt and mess with our sleep cycles, our natural sleep cycles. So being that we're so attached to our phones nowadays, this can lead to insomnia, all types of different sleep problems. And sleep, while it is a cousin to death, it is necessary to restore the body and to learn and to heal. Muscles grow, all these different things, messages received, dreams, prophetic visions, all these things can be received through this dream state, which is really more about shifting into a state of producing different types of waves, theta waves, beta waves, all these different types of brain waves that allow you to tap into a different level of energy. Now you see on the pause there, the sequence or the number time is 11 or 1111, which I see as 1111. One of my things when undergoing my spiritual awakening has been communicating with my spiritual team through various different methods, whether it be number sequences, visions, dreams. There's just different things that I'll just be out, I'll look up and I'll see an address and it'll be 999 XYZ or just whatever. There's all these different sequences, and understand that numbers are vibrations. Numbers carry powerful vibrations behind them. So when you see these multiplied sequences, these are basically called synchronistic sequences, which indicate an ability to connect with the ascended masters in the angelic realm, whether it be 333, 666, all these different numbers, okay? There's no such thing as good or bad. Shift out of that line of thinking and just see things as they are. Just observe. Just put yourself into a state of being, understanding that It is what it is. Nothing beyond that. So 1111 could mean or could signify opportunity portals opening. It could also mean alignment with higher self or beginning to remember. So to basically become a member again of yourself. Now, cell phones have been shown to affect a natural state of being by adding electromagnetic radiation or any type of magnetic wave or electrical interference, because our phones are constantly pinging cell phone towers. That requires energy to do so. Why do you think you have to charge your phone up? How do you think that energy is depleted? That energy is depleted because of the constant needing to ping home, to contact the satellite. So understanding that thought is the manipulation of energy. Hence, a thought is a willful act, and it's powerful enough for creation. So understanding that thought is something we do willingly. You choose to think the things you do. You can say that these thoughts don't belong to you, which ultimately they do not, because they belong to the avatar in which you are animating as a spiritual being. However, you can dictate what you choose to think about. What you choose to point your laser at is entirely dependent upon you and what your sole purpose is on this plane. Now, as you see her looking up, you notice ears or a ringing sensation. Now, ears ringing can be indicative of a download or receiving a light code. Now, this can also appear as visions or seeing different things that spark your imagination that may look like a dog or may look like a fish, or different things that will spark a line of thinking that will essentially add fuel to your creative aspect. This could be flashing pictures, words, numbers, or a combination of it all. Could even be prophetic ideas or very inspirational energy that makes you want to create. I've received some schematics, some drawings, and different things that I never could have materialized or pulled down myself without the use of sun gazing. It's actually a very useful thing, but typically it's done during the sunrise and sunset period when you are at essentially an equal leveling field with the sun. You don't want to be squinting, basically, because you can cause that damage, because the sun, you have to understand, is so bright in its magnificence. It can destroy with its fire, with its strength, with its intensity, with its passion. Understanding that the moon is a reflection of the sun, and it too has a heat or a light, but it is a much warmer light. It's the difference of putting a pot of water onto a flame with the burner turned up to the max, and then heating that same pot of water up on a burner with the heat turned up slowly and gradually. That's the moon, whereas the sun is about the high heat, high intensity. It can actually destroy, whereas the moon is about creating a state of fluidness. So, next thing that is shown is what I believe to be a trinity of self. Now, these are the cycles of life. Now, my interpretation is that we always have 3 concurrent cycles running within any given moment. These cycles can be seen as the past, the present, and the future. Now, this is a little bit of a double entendre, because The past, or how we, or what we are moving out of, is the duality, the good, bad, the yes, no, the left, right, a slavery master type of thinking, a good, bad line of thinking, a mother's vision versus father's. Understanding that if our left eye is our mother's vision and our right eye is our father's vision, then our internal vision, or our bird's eye, our third eye vision, would be our perspective. Aside from our mother or our father's, which is what has become ultimately that which has come before us, is our mother or our father's vision. Think big picture here when I'm talking about these terms. And so the now is all about the integration phase, where we are ushering in the quantum. Now, when I say quantum, all I simply mean is going from black and white to all the colors, the full color spectrum, the rainbow, and understanding that each of these colors corresponds to a different chakra center, a different energy center. This is understanding that things are just as they are, that you are to be in a state of observing with no attachments. This is being able to receive downloads, light codes, being able to cultivate your inner light and build up your inner ship, your inner army, your inner fleet, so that you can integrate as many supporting roles or as many supporting characters as you need to accomplish your divine purpose on this plane. Now, this is all contingent upon how big of an impact you want to have. Ultimately, all of us are a blip on the universal scale. Now, how big of a splash you want to make is entirely up to you. Do you want to be a drop in the ocean, or do you want to be a giant tidal wave? It's entirely up to you, and the potential outcome is based upon the actions you take now. The small behaviors that you change on the day-to-day over time align you or put you on the path of your higher self, your divine purpose. Understanding that thoughts become words, words become actions, actions become habits, and habits form a lifetime, and lifetimes form your destiny. Understanding that if you think you are less than, you will create words or create a chemicals that correspond to that negative energy, and you will express it via the air element in the form of words, which will then become actions, which has to do with your passion, your fire element. And these actions will lead to habits, repetition, which leads to a snake devouring itself endlessly. Understanding that the future is contingent upon what you do now. You may think that the past holds some form of leverage, but it truly doesn't. The past acts as a mere foundation upon which to rise above. The bag, to me, in the future symbolizes if no corrective action is taken, the same level of carelessness will lead to a level of pollution where there is a story behind the bag. And instead of being multi-used, it will be discarded. And because of this discarding and carelessness, there will come a point to where that energy will hit a wall and be reflected back. And the consequences will be suffered by the people who are having to deal with that. Now, if one should take such a selfish stance and subscribe to the idea of, well, that doesn't matter for me, I'm not going to be here, I'm going to be dead. Do you not have any family? Do you not have any family who has children? Or are you just so consumed with your own experience that you forgot about the community aspect? That you forgot to love thy neighbor because thy neighbor is actually you? Your struggles that you've been trying to contain and keep silent could have saved someone's life. But because of your pride and ego, you kept that information in fear of judgment, which no human being has the right to ultimately judge, because we all have insecurities and we all have demons that we are dealing with, some Satans, some opposing force that we are dealing with. And just because others of us don't readily display those does not mean that it is not occurring. We all came here with a purpose, and we all came here with an opposition. Perhaps one of my theories is similar to the lines of Gemini Man. What if our future self is truly in a battle against our past self, trying to influence? This is our demon and our angel, because our angel, our future self, knows where we want to be. It knows what would fulfill our soul. However, our past knows what's comfortable. The future represents the unknown, uncertainty, while the past represents certainty and comfortability. Now, the present is a little bit of both. You may have small victories in which you can taste bits of the future, in which your visualizations, coupled with the belief and raw feelings of joy, when you would experience that, propel you to continuously go forward and walk into that portal. Whereas the past keeps you tethered to the cycle of consuming yourself. This is where the spiral concept comes in, because you must go within the womb, and then within the womb, you must spiral within the womb to find ultimately the self. Once you find the self through the womb, you are able to then rebuild the image that of which you see yourself ultimately at the end of your life, at the end of your time here on this plane, accomplishing whatever that looks like for you. Now, the next joint, or the next thing that caught my eye was, I'm not even sure what the name of this is, but I know it's a game that's played with, you put your hand down, put the knife, and it's ultimately, I feel like, ultimately that game is a test of self-confidence along with fearlessness, because it's almost accepting that pain is an outcome, but pushing on nonetheless, because you may have practiced this skill that is seemingly walking on a tightrope that appears to be dangerous, but only to an untrained eye. So the breakdown of the logo pgLang. Now, few different things that I get when looking at this logo. One thing that jumped out to me immediately was the Ang portion. Ang is the root word for to bend or to be a messenger. It translates to anglios, which is the Greek translation, and the Latin root is to bend, but it derives from ang, right? And so to meet at a common vortex. Now, El means the shining one. So to combine ang and El, would the literal translation would be messenger of the shining one. Now, PG is an abbreviation for page. Now, page, the page type of energy in the tarot, which is the first place my mind went, it signifies a young type of energy, a almost naive-like type of energy that could be underestimated because of its youthfulness. But because of this underestimation, if that's even a word, fuck it. Because of this underestimation, this page energy has the ability to quickly transform into a knight and into a king, ultimately. In many different traditions, especially the Egyptian tradition or the Nephilim, you can read the Nephilim Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, there is this El. There's this obsession with the El, or the 90 degrees, because it signified the final ascension through which a soul could be projected out of body, essentially, into the higher dimensions, the higher realms. So understanding that, putting all the pieces together, my interpretation of pgLang is young vessels with ancient wisdom who are being divinely guided to deliver a message of cultivating the inner light of the people, which is profound. And I love that. And it makes sense. It makes sense to me. So I'd love to hear what your interpretation of it is, but that's what my interpretation of it is. And so hopping over to the next slide, we see a beach with this plastic bag. Again, it's in the middle of the frame. It's detracting from the beauty of the beach. So tying into a lack of compassion and pride for Mother Earth, it goes to that littering aspect. If someone is so willing or so easily able to litter, that actually shows that they think that of themselves. They think that they themselves are trash, are just to be discarded. Because if one thought highly of themselves and had the respect and was consciously aware of their actions, they would understand that throwing trash on a beach, putting trash out into your world when it has a place, is not compassion. It's not doing what's needed. That's selfish. That's fulfilling your desires over the desires and the needs of the humanity. Now, this level of disrespect is to the mother of all, right? One of the entities or the energies that I connect with is Yemaye, which is an African Orisha, which is known as the mother of all, the salt water goddess, basically the mother of all fish. Her children cannot be counted. Same way the fish cannot be counted in the sea. Okay, this is about the community aspect. Yemaye is about the community first, okay? Whereas the Oshun archetype would be more about self-indulgence, the freshwater rivers, the sweet waters, Oya would act as the fire, the destroyer that destroys the old to bring in the new. All of these things almost act as a evaporation cycle of sorts that allow new change to be ushered in. Fire comes in and destroys old destructive habits and is rebuilt. The lands are refertilized, germinated, and seeds are dropped and planted and regrown through the earth, re-pollinated. This is a natural thing that occurs. So hopping over to the next one, again, I believe this, you see two eyes fighting, two singular perspectives fighting, meaning that this is the duality. This is mother versus father. This is, they look identical, but yet they're fighting. Why would you fight if you were identical? Would this not be a case of the 6 and the 9? What if the 6 was a 9? What if the 9 was a 6? Would they not then be able to understand the perspective of each other? Hopping over to the clock. Time is irrelevant. When you're living in the present, when you're being mindful, think about it. When you're spending time with people you love, doing the things you love, does not time seem to be altered? Does it seem to go so fast or so slow because you're enjoying it so much that you forget about time? But let there be something you're not looking forward to, and tell me how slow time goes by at that point, or rather your perception of it, because this is a game of perception and how you perceive. Can you see beyond the veil, or do you just take things as they are? Do you accept what has been given, or do you observe and respond with your truth, what the Creator instilled within you to express? Or do you shy away from your truth and cling to a collective truth, that of which is contingent upon acceptance and fitting in? Because knowing that as you climb a ladder of consciousness, you stand out from the masses. Therefore, people can throw stones at you. People can laugh at you. People can hurt at you. And you can see this because you are at a higher vantage point. But this higher vantage point also yields less interference. And less interference is potent because intention coupled with belief equals magic. Now let me say that again. Intention coupled with absolute pure belief equals magic. This is the basis of manifestation and the law of attraction. You have to place your intent, believe that it will work. It already has worked. It has already occurred. And that now you are simply waiting. It's the process of planting a seed, giving the seed what it needs to grow, the attention, and then allowing the seed or the universe to apply universal intelligence and let that seed become a beautiful flower unto which nectar can be derived from. A bit of sweetness, a fruit of this tree. Thinking about being a child, discovering the world with a childlike experience. It's all about discovering everything as if it were for the first time. No attachments, no stress, no labels or conditioning. These are all things that are taught. Kids don't take life serious because once you begin to, it becomes a form of paralysis. You begin to get stuck into the heart or the head. And so you put yourself into one of these self-imposed prisons, and instead of doing anything and acting in a state of flow, acting as the Trinity, the Mother, the Father, and the Son, you get trapped into logic. And if you're being too logical, you'll never get anything done because you're being realistic about it. You're trying to figure out the how. You're trying to micromanage the universe. If you get stuck into imagination, you may have great ideas, but guess what? What good are those ideas in your head? How is that helping humanity? How is that helping you? By not materializing them. Thoughts come to us in the form and frequency of something so light that it is a thought or an idea. And we must pick up and tune in on that idea and then add density, add attachments, add logic, add our understanding of physics to then add density to pull that idea from the higher dimension down to this physical realm, into which we take action on it. And if you are not taking action, the final piece, if you are not embodying the sun, you are actually getting stuck with a product that could change the face of humanity. Yet instead, you're choosing to get stuck into one of the facilities instead of being in a state of flow and allowing heart, head, and hand to work all together. To have imagination, logic, and action work all together. Seeing these kids on the bus, again, the community aspect has been lost. Think about your neighbors. We don't even have neighbors anymore. I can't tell you the last time I was able to connect with a neighbor, on the sense that your neighbors used to be able to look over your home. You know, you used to be able to trust your neighbor with a key to your house. All these different things that were contingent upon trust, but the trust is gone because we have given so much attention to our devices and our distractions that now we fear death. We fear the silence. Silence is akin to death. And so we say that, oh, we're scared to meditate. We're scared to place ourselves in a position of just sitting and basking in the nothingness. But instead, we require constant overexposure to emotionally charged symbols and messages which affect our sleep and concentration. Ultimately leaving over, you see the swap, and you see the day and the night attachment, and the obsession continues. There's this understanding that blue light does indeed affect production of melatonin, which is linked to sleep. It is the chemical that is produced, the opposite of serotonin. So if serotonin picks us up, melatonin takes us down. Understanding that our phones and our devices constantly emitting this blue light is going to keep us up, not keep us synced in with the universal clock, i.e. our circadian clocks, our internal clocks. If we never unplug, when do we ever truly reflect? When do we ever look and see how our choices have manifested in the external realm, and if we are in concurrence with our destiny? When you identify with something, this leads to a level of attachment, and this level of attachment can actually cause you to feel personally attacked when that thing is attacked. when in fact you are nothing. You are nothing in the sense that you came into this world as a child. You were born in the womb out of love and darkness. Those are the two things in the womb. Therefore, anything or any feeling aside from darkness and love is not your true self, not your true form. Understanding that imagination is the most powerful tool in the universe. When is the last time that you or a group of friends has used your imagination for anything other than bad? Thinking of, oh, I wonder what's the worst thing that could happen. Oh, nothing could get worse than this. By feeding into that, by feeding into fear, what you are doing is you're putting that type of energy into the universe. The universe is indifferent. The universe does not care if you're black, blue, green, yellow. It does not care. All it cares about is your energy. What is your energy? How are you manipulating your energy? How are you transmuting the chemicals within your body to produce the desired results in the external world? Are you in a state of flow, in a state of currency, or are you in a state of poverty? Are you in a poverty mindset? Understanding that suffering is the result of not living in one's purpose. If you are suffering, it is because you walked away from God. You walked away from your higher self. You disassociated with your true purpose and tried to fill it with distractions, with instant gratification. And then when that instant gratification wore off, you were left confused and left feeling lost, without purpose, because you weren't supposed to be doing that in the first place. But if you would just sit down and take a second to listen to yourself and what you desire, what makes your soul happy and feel fulfilled, you would have a direction. But this constant overstimulation has led to not wanting to be alone. People fear being alone. Look at what this virus, this coronavirus, is currently doing to society. It is closing down all social gatherings, all social events, large gatherings, flights, traveling. You are going to be at home. That means that you are going to have to deal with your demons. There's no more running. There's no more turning on basketball, football. No. Sit down, deal with your shit. Deal with your weaknesses. Deal with your shadow, because we all have one. But as you address these weaknesses and these things that have been leading you to this life of misery and limiting your limitlessness, you begin to free yourself. But you can only free yourself through being present, through looking through now, through making a conscientious effort to be present and observe all things as if it were the first time. It doesn't matter if you just talked to somebody 10 minutes ago. When you pick up that phone and talk to them again, observe and react as if you were meeting them for the first time, and if you were having this exchange for the first time. And tell me if it does not fundamentally change the way you interact with people on a day-to-day basis. When you're tuned in, when you're present, you have access to all your tools. Suddenly, everything doesn't look like a nail because you have more than a hammer. You have a drill, you have a saw, you have a ruler. You have all these tools to be a master carpenter, to build the reality as you see fit, as the center of the universe, as the sun, as he or she who precedes those who have came before. the ascended masters, our ancestors, our spiritual guides, all these forces that are with you, guarding you every step of the way, teaching you, offering you the lessons. Whether you choose to consume and regurgitate them is entirely up to you, but the lessons and the information is there regardless. It is the same way as gravity and as the elements. The elements such as air forces itself upon you, regardless on if you agree with its existence or not. It does not require your input to fulfill its purpose. This is the same approach we should take to where no outside input should matter. Any people in your life should be an enhancement to your life. You should already have love. You should already have abundance. You should already be grateful. Now, when extra realities, extra angles of light come into your life, you must then be extra grateful for the lessons in which you will be taught through these gatekeepers. People are truly the keys. So when you understand people, you understand and you unlock the keys or the doors to the universe. Because think about how think of one person in your life whom, had you not met, your life probably would have been taken in a drastically different direction. All through one person. So with Kendrick on the pole, right? Immediately what jumped out to me is North Pole, South Pole, the two polar opposites. You see that he's asleep, eyes covered, right? Maybe a state of exhaustion, wearing something comfortable. So seeing this and then seeing the bottom end, the other polar opposite, right? You see that the feminine aspect is awake, looking around, adapting. And if Kendrick is shown as the sun here, right? The culmination of what comes before him, the brightest star in the sky, the moon would then reflect what the sun projects. The moon is a less intense version of the sun that is about fluidity. Again, you see the moon earrings, the crescents. This represents the emotions, the divine feminine. She then says, I wonder what he's thinking about up there, or if he is even thinking at all. This is showing that there is a clear disconnect between the divine feminine and the divine masculine. There is a lack of communication between the poles, between the polar opposites. Understanding that this type of methodical global thinking can only come when you embody the archetype of being all things and being nothing. You see the final scenes as kids lying outside, resting, getting the sunlight, the vitamin D, and feeling the grounding effects of Mother Nature. Perhaps symbolizing going into deep thought, the meditation, the breathing. All of this is about centering yourself and grounding yourself, your universe, so that you can tune in and listen to that of which is associated with your divine purpose and your divine existence, your reason for existing on this plane. We all have one, and it's up to you to determine what your soul is calling you to do. So what is it? What are you being called to do? This is a beautifully executed piece of visual content, and I just cannot wait to see what they produce, and I can't wait to be a part of it in some shape or form. So it's your boy Curse. This has been my breakdown